My name is Emily Carter. I'm 28 years old, and I live in a small apartment in Chicago with the man I love, Daniel Brooks. For 6 years, I worked as an office coordinator at a marketing company. It wasn't my dream job, but I was proud of it. I arrived early every morning, stayed late when people needed help, and never complained. My coworkers often said I cared too much about work. Maybe they were right. But that morning was different. It was my wedding day. I woke up before sunrise with a huge smile on my face. My white wedding dress was hanging beside the bedroom window. Soft morning light touched the fabric, making it look almost magical. Daniel was still asleep. I quietly kissed his forehead before walking into the kitchen to make coffee. "Good morning, future Mrs. Brooks," he said with a sleepy smile as he walked into the kitchen a few minutes later. I laughed. "Only a few more hours." He wrapped his arms around me. "I can't believe today is finally here." "Me neither." We stood there for a moment without saying anything. We didn't need words. We had spent 3 wonderful years building this life together. Daniel looked at the clock. "Are you sure you have to go to work this morning?" I nodded. "My boss only asked me to stop by for a few hours. I just need to finish one report and organize some files. I'll leave before lunch." He frowned. "I still don't like it." "I'll be fine." "You promise?" "I promise." He smiled and kissed my forehead. "I'll see you at the church." "I'll be there." I grabbed my purse, looked at my wedding dress one more time, and left the apartment. The city felt brighter than usual. Even the cold morning wind couldn't ruin my mood. As I walked into the office, several coworkers smiled. "Congratulations, Emily! You look so happy." "Today's the big day." I thanked everyone with a big smile. Sarah Miller, my closest friend at work, walked over carrying a small gift bag. "This is for you," she said. "You didn't have to." I wanted to. Inside the bag was a beautiful silver bracelet. My eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful. You deserve a perfect day." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you." For a moment, everything felt perfect. I sat at my desk and quickly finished my report. At exactly 10:30, I saved the final file and shut down my computer. I checked my phone. Daniel had sent a message. "I already miss you. I'll be waiting for you at the church. I love you." I smiled and replied, "I love you too. See you soon." Just as I stood up to leave, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Emily?" I turned around. It was my boss, Richard Collins. He rarely smiled. Today was no different. "Can you come to my office for a minute?" "Of course." I wasn't worried. Maybe he wanted to congratulate me. Maybe the team had planned a surprise. I followed him down the quiet hallway. The office door closed behind us. Richard didn't ask me to sit. Instead, he walked behind his desk, picked up a large envelope, and placed it in front of me. His face showed no emotion. "Emily," he said calmly, "the company has decided to eliminate your position." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "We're restructuring." I stared at him, trying to understand his words. I don't understand. This is your termination letter. My hands began to shake. There has to be some mistake. There isn't. But today is my wedding day. I know. His answer was cold. So, can we discuss this next week? I'm afraid not. The room suddenly felt too small. My heart pounded inside my chest. I've worked here for 6 years. Yes, I've never been late. Correct. I've trained new employees. Yes. I worked weekends when people called in sick. He nodded once. We appreciate your service. Appreciate? That single word felt like a knife. If you appreciate me, I whispered, why are you firing me today? Richard folded his hands. The decision was made by management. You couldn't wait one day? Silence. Just one day, 24 hours. That was all I wanted. I looked down at the envelope lying on the desk. Inside was my final paycheck, information about my benefits, and a short letter thanking me for my years of service. 6 years. Reduced to a few pieces of paper. Tears blurred my vision. I tried to stay strong. I didn't want to cry in front of him, but I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Richard looked away. I'm sorry, Emily. Those words came too late. I picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Without another word, I walked toward the door. As my hand touched the doorknob, one painful thought echoed through my mind. In just a few hours, I was supposed to become someone's wife. But before I could even say, I do, I had already lost the job I had given 6 years of my life to. I walked out of Richard's office with tears filling my eyes. The hallway that had always felt familiar suddenly felt cold and empty. I held the envelope tightly against my chest, as if I could somehow make everything inside disappear. When I reached my desk, Sarah looked at me and immediately knew something was wrong. Emily? She asked softly. What happened? I couldn't answer. I simply handed her the termination letter. She read the first page and her face turned pale. No? She whispered. They fired you? I nodded. Today? Another nod. Sarah covered her mouth with one hand. They knew today was your wedding. I know. This is cruel. I tried to smile, but my lips wouldn't move. I'll be okay. No, you won't. Her voice was full of anger. You gave everything to this company. I guess it wasn't enough. Sarah stepped closer and hugged me tightly. For a few seconds, I let myself cry. Then I quickly wiped away my tears. I have to go. Emily, if I don't leave now, I'll be late. She looked at me with worried eyes. Does Daniel know? I shook my head. No. Are you going to tell him? I don't know. Sarah held my shoulders. Whatever happens, don't go through this alone. I nodded, picked up my purse, and walked toward the elevator. Every step felt heavier than the last. Outside, the bright sunshine almost hurt my eyes. People were laughing on the sidewalks. Cars passed by. Life continued as if nothing had happened. But my whole world had changed. I sat inside my car and stared at my phone. Daniel had sent another message. Everyone is excited. My mom keeps asking when you'll arrive. Drive safely, beautiful. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to say that I had just lost my job, that I was scared, that I didn't know how we would pay our bills. But today was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. I couldn't ruin it. Instead, I typed, "I'm on my way. I can't wait to marry you." I pressed send. Then I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. For the first time in years, I felt completely lost. After a few minutes, I started the car and drove to the church. As I arrived, I could already see guests gathering outside. Friends smiled and waved. Children ran across the grass. Beautiful white flowers decorated the entrance. Everything looked exactly the way I had imagined. Except I no longer felt like the happy bride. Inside the bridal room, my mother, Linda, rushed over to hug me. "Oh, sweetheart," she said with tears in her eyes. "You look so beautiful." "Thanks, Mom." She smiled as she helped me put on my wedding dress. "Are you nervous?" "A little." She laughed. "That's normal." I looked at myself in the mirror. The white dress fit perfectly. My hair was carefully styled. My makeup covered most of my tears. From the outside, I looked like the happiest woman in the world. But inside, I was falling apart. My mother noticed my silence. "Emily?" "Yes?" "Is everything okay?" I forced another smile. "I'm just emotional." She gently held my face. "Your father would be so proud of you today." Those words almost broke me. Dad had passed away 4 years earlier. He always believed that kindness would be rewarded. If he were here today, what would he say? A knock came at the door. The wedding coordinator smiled. "It's time." My heart began beating faster. I took a deep breath. As the church doors slowly opened, beautiful music filled the room. Everyone stood. I stepped forward. At the end of the aisle stood Daniel. The moment he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. He smiled the same warm smile that had made me fall in love with him 3 years ago. Suddenly, nothing else mattered. Not the job, not the money, not Richard Collins. Only Daniel. As I walked toward him, he whispered softly, "You are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." I smiled. "And you're the luckiest man." He laughed quietly. The ceremony began. The pastor spoke about love, trust, and standing together during difficult times. Every word touched my heart. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, those words echoed inside my mind. For richer or poorer. I had become poorer just a few hours earlier. When it was my turn to speak my vows, my voice trembled. "Daniel, I promise to stand beside you in every season of life. I promise to love you even when life becomes difficult." He squeezed my hands gently. "I'll never let you face those difficult days alone." I almost burst into tears. If only he knew. The pastor smiled. "You may kiss the bride." The entire church filled with applause as Daniel kissed me. Everyone celebrated. Everyone believed this was the happiest day of my life. Only I knew the truth, hiding behind my smile. And as we walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, I silently prayed that the secret I was carrying wouldn't become the first shadow over our new marriage. The wedding reception was everything we had dreamed of. Our families laughed together. Our friends danced. People filled our plates with delicious food and our hearts with warm wishes. Congratulations! You two are perfect together. Have a wonderful honeymoon. I smiled at every guest. I thanked everyone for coming. I posed for pictures. From the outside, I looked like a happy bride. Inside, I felt like I was carrying a heavy stone in my heart. Every time someone mentioned our honeymoon, I remembered the envelope waiting in my purse. Every time someone talked about our future, I wondered how we would pay next month's rent. I hated keeping this secret from Daniel, but I wanted him to enjoy our wedding day. Just one perfect day. That was all I wanted to give him. As the evening came to an end, our guests began saying goodbye. My mother hugged us tightly. "Take care of each other," she said. "We will," Daniel answered. Sarah was one of the last people to leave. Before she walked away, she looked at me with worried eyes. She knew. She was the only person at the wedding who knew the truth. She gently squeezed my hand. "You don't have to carry this alone." I nodded quietly. "I know." A few hours later, Daniel and I arrived home. The apartment was peaceful. He carried me across the doorway, making us both laugh. "I've always wanted to do that," he said. "You almost dropped me." "I would never." For a few minutes, everything felt normal again. Then he noticed my smile disappear. "Emily?" I looked away. "Can we sit down?" His face became serious. "Of course." We sat together on the couch. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Daniel reached for my hand. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. There's something I didn't tell you." He waited patiently. I could see concern growing in his eyes. "This morning," my voice began to shake. "When I went to work." The tears I had been holding back all day finally escaped. Daniel immediately moved closer. "Hey, look at me." "I tried to tell you. You don't have to be afraid." I opened my purse and placed the envelope on the coffee table. He looked down at it. "What is this?" "My termination letter." He stared at me in silence. "I was fired." His eyes widened. "When?" "This morning." He looked completely shocked. "Today?" I nodded. "Just a few hours before the wedding." He slowly picked up the letter and read it. His expression changed from confusion to disbelief. "They fired you? Today?" "Yes." "But they knew we were getting married." "I know." He put the papers back on the table and wrapped both arms around me. I buried my face against his shoulder and cried harder than I had all day. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He gently pulled back. "Why are you apologizing?" "Because now everything is different." "What do you mean?" "Our honeymoon." "Our savings." "The rent." "The bills." I should have been bringing security into our marriage. Instead, I brought problems. Daniel looked directly into my eyes. Emily Carter. His voice was calm but firm. Listen to me very carefully. I nodded. I didn't marry your paycheck. Fresh tears rolled down my cheeks. I married you. He held my hands tightly. If we have money, we'll smile together. If we struggle, we'll struggle together. If we have to cancel the honeymoon, we'll make new memories another day. I couldn't stop crying. I feel like I failed you. No. He gently wiped away my tears. You survived one of the cruelest days anyone could imagine. You still walked down that aisle. You still smiled. You still became my wife. That isn't failure. That's incredible strength. For the first time since leaving my office, I felt the weight on my heart become a little lighter. We sat together in silence for several minutes. Then Daniel picked up the termination letter again. Something caught his attention. Emily! What? He pointed to the date at the bottom of the document. This says the decision was approved 3 weeks ago. I leaned closer. He was right. 3 weeks. They already knew, I whispered. They let you keep working. They watched you prepare for your wedding. And they still chose today. A cold feeling ran through my body. Daniel frowned. This doesn't make sense. They could have told you earlier. Or waited until after the wedding. Why today? I slowly remembered something Sarah had said a few weeks earlier. There were rumors. What kind of rumors? That management wanted to give someone's position to the CEO's nephew. Daniel looked at me. You think this wasn't really about restructuring? I looked at the termination letter again. For the first time, I began to wonder if losing my job had nothing to do with my performance. Maybe someone had planned this long before my wedding day. And if that was true, the story wasn't over yet. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. The joy of our wedding was still in my heart, but the pain of losing my job had not disappeared. Daniel kissed my forehead before making breakfast. So, he said with a smile, what's our plan today? I looked at him. My plan? Our plan, he corrected gently. I smiled for the first time that morning. We update your resume. We apply for new jobs. And tonight, he added, we order pizza because that's cheaper than a honeymoon. I laughed through my tears. I can live with that. Over the next few weeks, I sent out dozens of job applications. Some companies never replied. Some interviews lasted only a few minutes. Every rejection made me question myself again. Maybe Richard had been right. Maybe I wasn't valuable anymore. Whenever those thoughts appeared, Daniel reminded me of the truth. One person's opinion doesn't decide your future. His words became my strength. One afternoon, my phone rang. The caller introduced herself as Jennifer Adams, the hiring manager of a growing marketing company. Emily, she said warmly, your name has been recommended to us by several former clients. I was surprised. Former clients? Yes? They all said the same thing. That you were organized, kind, dependable, and the reason they enjoyed working with your previous company. I felt my eyes fill with tears. For years, I had wondered if anyone noticed my hard work. Now I had my answer. Jennifer continued, "We'd love to meet you." A week later, I attended the interview. Unlike my old workplace, everyone welcomed me with genuine smiles. The interview felt more like a conversation than an interrogation. They asked about my ideas. They listened to my answers. They respected my experience. 2 days later, Jennifer called again. "We'd like to offer you the position." I held my breath. "The salary is 20% higher than your previous job. And after reading your references, we'd also like you to help train our new employees." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After thanking her, I hung up the phone and immediately called Daniel. "I got the job!" He shouted so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I knew you would!" That evening, we celebrated with 2 slices of chocolate cake from the neighborhood bakery. It wasn't expensive, but it tasted like hope. 3 months passed. Life slowly became peaceful again. Then, one Friday afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call. The caller ID showed the name I never expected to see again: Richard Collins. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Instead, I answered, "Hello? Emily, this is Richard." I know. He sounded different, not confident, not cold, almost nervous. "I'd like to apologize." I remained silent. "We've lost several important clients over the past few months." I wasn't surprised. They specifically asked for you. I closed my eyes. Richard sighed. "I made a mistake. The company would like to offer you your old position back. We're also prepared to give you a promotion and a higher salary." Months earlier, I would have accepted without hesitation. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I looked across the room. Daniel was reading a book on his couch. He smiled when our eyes met. In that moment, I realized something important. My happiness had never depended on that company. It had always depended on the people who loved me. "Thank you for the offer," I said politely, "but I'm happy where I am." There was a long silence. "I understand," Richard replied quietly. "I truly wish you the best." "Thank you!" I ended the call and placed my phone on the table. Daniel looked up. What did he want? He wanted me to go back. And? I said no. Daniel smiled proudly. "Any regrets?" I shook my head. "Not even one." That evening, we went for a walk through the neighborhood where we had started our life together as husband and wife. The sunset painted the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. I reached for Daniel's hand. "You know," I said, "I used to think my boss ruined our wedding day." Daniel squeezed my hand gently. "And now?" I smiled as we continued walking. "Now I think he changed my life." If he hadn't fired me, I never would have discovered my true worth. I never would have found a company that respected me. And I never would have learned that real security isn't found in a job. It's found in the people who stay beside you when everything falls apart. Daniel kissed my forehead. I'll always be one of those people. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Sometimes life closes a door without warning. It hurts. It feels unfair. But that doesn't mean your story is over. Looking back now, I no longer remember my wedding day as the day I lost my job. I remember it as the day I married the man who taught me that love is stronger than fear, hope is stronger than disappointment, and our greatest blessings sometimes arrive wearing the clothes of our greatest heartbreak. And that was the most valuable lesson of all.